Is Superman going to be able to take Lois Lane out for dinner tonight, or are they eating in? Let's check in with how much superheroes make at their day jobs and see if we can't figure that out.
Ladies, gentlemen, geeks of all ages, you are now entering BJ Shea's Geek Nation. Welcome.
Hey guys, Chris Walker here, Uncle Chris on BJ and Meg's Morning Show. Found an article on Geek Tyrant today that talks a little bit about what superheroes make at their day jobs. Superheroes have to work just like everybody else. They don't get paid for the superhero stuff, so they have to get regular jobs, or at least their alter egos do. We all know that Superman's Clark Kent is, of course, a reporter of some kind, you know, whether he's an online blogger, which I think is the last time I heard that's what he's doing these days, or whether what he used to do, a more traditional newspaper reporter, he gets paid for that job. The question is, just how much is he probably making at that job? So, let's take a look and see what they've got for us. This is an article posted on Geek Tyrant from Infographics. It's a great resource for all of those nagging little real-world questions that you might have about superheroes. There's at least a couple of great books from Infographics that you can check out that have all of this stuff broken down in the book. Stuff like height comparisons for different superheroes and things like that. But for today, let's talk a little bit about what these heroes are probably making at their day jobs. So we already talked a little bit about Superman. Clark Kent, as a journalist, likely in today's dollars, somewhere in the neighborhood of $39,000 a year. I don't know how close of an analog to New York City metropolis actually is, but $39,000 a year in New York City isn't really going to be enough to live on for a living wage. $39,000 a year in New York City, I don't think so. I think you're living in a one-bedroom apartment by yourself, maybe even with a roommate, eating ramen at least 2 or 3 times a week. Storm from the X-Men, her alter ego, Aurora Monroe, she's the headmistress of the school, of the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. And if you're the headmistress for a private school like that, you're probably making almost $50,000 a year. A little bit better than Superman's journalist, but again, not exactly a lot of money in today's world as far as a living wage goes. Now, granted, she has her room and board taken care of, and she probably eats for free at the school as well, so she probably doesn't have to worry about as much of that as some of the other people on the list. But $47,000, $48,000 a year for a headmistress, okay, she's doing a little bit better than Clark Kent, but still probably struggling a little bit, just saying. Spider-Man, as a photographer in New York City...
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Well, BJ just called, so I had to pick up the phone and move things around, so if it looks a little bit different, sorry about that, but had to talk to the boss. Anyway, back to the list. Where was I? Oh yes, Spider-Man. Peter Parker, Spider-Man's alter ego, he is a photographer. He works for a newspaper. So according to this list, he makes somewhere in the order of about $22,000 a year. Depending on which version of Peter Parker you're looking at, sometimes he's a scientist with essentially his own company that he runs and things like that. He's probably making a little bit more. But the Peter Parker we're talking about is just the straight up photojournalist, and he takes pictures and gives them to the newspaper. Well, sells them to the newspaper. $22,000 a year. So actually, for a teenage kid, not too bad. If we're still talking about Peter Parker who's in school, still living with Aunt May, probably still has enough going on as far as, you know, $22,000 a year coming in is probably good, at least to help out around the house a little bit, take care of whatever. Wonder Woman. Well, Diana Prince. She's had a bunch of jobs over the years. I mean, Wonder Woman's been around for a really, really long time, so she's held down a few different jobs. One of the most prominent being a nurse. Now, Diana Prince as a nurse probably make almost $50,000 a year, maybe slightly more than the headmistress of the Xavier School for Gifted Children, a little bit more than Storm makes. It kind of depends on which hospital she's working in. If she's working in a large metropolitan hospital in somewhere like Metropolis, assuming it's a fairly nice hospital, she's probably making a little bit more, but somewhere in that $50,000 a year range. So she's doing okay. Assuming that she lives in Metropolis, which she probably doesn't. Where does Wonder Woman live? Where does Diana Prince live? She probably doesn't have an apartment in the city. This is probably just extra money for her. It's probably the same thing for Superman. This $50,000 a year isn't going towards room and board. He's not living somewhere. He lives at the North Pole. He lives at the Fortress of Solitude. He doesn't need to pay rent. So a lot of this is probably just cheddar for him. You know, it's like, I've got all this $50,000 that I don't know what to do with. I don't need to buy anything. The place is furnished. I mean, he could probably turn around and just give all that to charity, which he probably does. Superman being the gigantic Boy Scout that he is. Let's drift over to the Disney Pixar side of things for a minute and talk about Mr. Incredible, Robert Bob Parr. He is an insurance salesman, or at least a claims adjuster of some kind at the insurance agency he works at. We see him do that in the movie. Depending on how big the insurance agency is, I mean, he's probably not working for State Farm, but maybe he is. I don't know. He's probably making making somewhere close to $25,000 a year. Very, very small amount of money right now. And we see that Mrs. Incredible appears to be a stay-at-home mom. Maybe not a lot of money coming in from her side of things unless she has other odd jobs or she's selling stuff on Etsy or who knows what. If he is the breadwinner at $25,000 a year, they have got to be making their money from somewhere else to afford the house out in the burbs that they're living in. Although the relocation agency or whatever it is probably put up the money for the house. That's probably taken care of. But still, $25,000 a year when you got 3 kids and one of them's a baby, that's probably not enough money to really, really get by. So I'm pretty sure they're going to need to be bringing in some money from somewhere else. Maybe Dash has a paper route. Violet maybe babysits or something like this. I don't know. Now, this next one actually surprised me a little bit. Matt Murdock, the alter ego of the Daredevil, he's a lawyer. Now, you think about lawyer and you think about all of these movies where the lawyer was the rich, wealthy snob and evil and greed and money and gimme. You think about those guys and you're like, oh, lawyers are probably pretty successful. Or you watch something like, you watch Shatner on Boston Legal, and you think, okay, they make a lot of money. Lawyers do. Those lawyers do. But you think about what Matt Murdock does, what Matt and Foggy do at Nelson and Murdock in Hell's Kitchen. They're working a lot of low-profile cases, the kind of clients who can't really afford to pay a lot of money to a lawyer, so they're working on the cheap most of the time and pro bono a lot of the time. So yeah, he's probably not making much more than $50,000 a year, give or take. And in fact, the exact number that's on the website here is $48,343 a year. Again, you're in New York, you're in Hell's Kitchen. $50,000 a year, not a lot of money in that kind of thing. Then he's got to pay for the place that he's renting out for the offices. He's got to eat. He probably goes on dates. Of course, Elektra's rich. Maybe she pays for everything. I don't know. So let's talk about somebody who is making a lot of money. Bruce Banner, the Hulk's alter ego. He's a scientist. And not just a scientist, but like a nuclear scientist. He's a physicist. He does all of this theoretical research work. He's probably got government money coming in all over the place. If he's with a big enough company, who knows? He's probably running the place right now. He could definitely strong-arm anybody who wanted to beat him out for a promotion. According to this article in Geek Tyrant, he's making somewhere on the order of $82,000, $83,000 a year. Pretty good. If I was making $82,000, $83,000 a year, I'd be able to live pretty well. All right, so big bucks time. Doctor Strange, his alter ego, Stephen Strange, is in fact a doctor. Don't think he spent a lot of time thinking up his superhero name, but I guess he didn't really need to. When you've got magic on your side, who cares how inventive your nickname is? Doctor Strange is a surgeon. He works at a big hospital in a big city. Compared to everybody else on this list, he makes the most money, more than $250,000 a year. Down at the other end of the scale, Ant-Man, the Scott Lang incarnation of Ant-Man, was a thief. It's hard to tell exactly how much money he made from those illicit activities of his. However, for his day job, for his cover, he had to work a lot of different odd jobs, and one of the ones that they feature specifically on the list here is an ice cream scooper. Coming home smelling like waffle cones, and you better believe he probably made about 18 grand a year, you know, barely that. Luckily for him, he spent a lot of time stealing stuff and selling that off and making money. Makes you wonder why he would bother with a regular day job, but there you go. Take from that what you will. And the last one on the list is a guy whose alter ego essentially does the same job that the superhero does. It's Martian Manhunter. John Johns or John Jones, depending on who you talk to. He's a police detective. So when he's not busy solving intergalactic crimes and taking care of big supervillains and bosses and things like that, he takes care of things on a more normal level, rounding up criminals. Clearly he has an overdeveloped sense of justice. And good for him. You know what? We need more of that. He makes probably $46,000 a year. And again, he's one of these guys who doesn't really need to pay for rent. He has a place. And that's just from the list that I saw in Geek Tyrant today. If you have somebody in particular you want me to look up, leave it in the comments down below. Leave me a superhero name and I'll find out how much their alter ego probably makes as far as whatever day job they might have. I have that kind of time and that type of a curiosity that I will happily look that up for you and comment back. As always, share, like, and subscribe. The 3 things I'm always going to ask you to do for me. And until next time, stay nerdy. Well, let's check in with how much superhero. Hey guys, Chris Walker here, BJ and. Yes, I'm not looking at the camera. This is not the camera. That's the camera.